So we're starting by zooming in on the airlock. This is where EV1 and EV2 will egress to begin the EVA. EV1 will egress first. He'll be the one wearing the red stripes. And he'll bring some tools and equipment for the SSU R&R with him. He'll be followed by EV2, Tim Peake, in the white stripes. Tim Peake will be carrying their spare SSU out to the worksite. Before the crew leave the vicinity of the airlock, they'll take a few moments to attempt to stow some other tools and equipment for subsequent EVA tasks on the outside of the airlock where they're easily accessible. Once that's complete, EV1 will translate to the starboard seat cart, where he will retrieve a foot restraint, which he'll use for worksite stabilization at the SSU. Once he has retrieved the foot restraint, he will connect the safety tether anchors for both crew members to handrails on the end of the S1 truss segment. Connecting the safety tether's anchors out here will enable them to reach all the way to the SSU worksite, which is on the far end of the truss. EV1 will then translate to the SSU worksite, where he will install and set up the foot restraint, positioning it to give him good access to the SSU itself. Once that's complete, he'll stow the tools and equipment he brought with him where they're easily accessible. Meanwhile, EV2 will also translate to the SSU worksite. And when he arrives, he will work to stow the spare SSU where it's within easy reach for the R&R. He'll then position himself where he can get good visuals on the SSU worksite and easily access the tools and equipment that have been brought out. EV1 will ingress the foot restraint and verify that he's in a good position for the SSU R&R. Crew will wait for the beginning of night, and when that occurs, they'll begin the SSU R&R. EV1 will remove the failed SSU and present it to EV2 for inspection, then stow it on his BRT so it's out of the way as the crew retrieves the spare SSU from the bag. EV1 will then install the spare SSU and bolt it down to the space station. Once that's complete, the crew will work together to put the failed SSU back in the bag that the spare SSU originally came out in, which EV2 will carry back to the airlock. EV1 will work to clean up the worksite, and then will follow EV2 back to the airlock, dropping off the foot restraint on his way. EV2 will place the failed SSU back inside the airlock and be joined by EV1. EV1 will trade out some equipment, and then begin his translation to the NPV worksite for the next task. On the way to this worksite, EV1 will stop and drop a cable on the port side of Z1. It'll be waiting here for EV2 to connect later in the EVA. Then EV1 will continue to the NPV. This is a non-propulsive vent worksite where he'll be installing this non-propulsive vent. In order to install the NPV, he will first remove a cover plate that was installed on the same location where the NPV goes, and then place the NPV on the end of Node 3. Here we have some NBL video of the crew practicing this task. You can see that the clearance between Node 3 and PMM is very tight, making this a challenging worksite for the EV crew. Once installation of the NPV is complete, EV1 will translate to the aft side of the vehicle, and specifically to the aft side of PMA-3. Here he will release a PMA-3 launch restraint bracket. This will free some cables, which will be disconnected on a subsequent EVA, allowing the PMA-3 to be relocated to an alternate location on space station. Once this is complete, EV1 will translate back to the airlock, where he will drop off the tools and equipment he used for the NPV, and pick up an empty bag, which he will use for the retrieval of the CP9 luminaire. So that's camera port 9. The light has some burned out light bulbs. So he'll translate out to this worksite, retrieve the luminaire, which you can see here in white, and he'll place that luminaire in the bag he brought out with him. Once he has retrieved the luminaire, he'll do a few cleanup tasks at the worksite and then translate back to the airlock. Meanwhile, EV2 will have retrieved the IDA cable bag. So this bag contains a cable which will be used to provide power and data to the IDA and international docking adapter. EV2 will translate to the nadir side of the lab, attempt stow the cable bag, and begin routing the cable. First, he'll route a leg of it aft to node 1 and connect on the nadir side of node 1. He'll then retrieve the EPIC MDM leg of this cable and route it zenith on the lab, and then port across the vehicle. As you can see from this flyby, one of the key challenges EV2 Tim Peake will face during this portion of the EVA will be the tightness of the translation path and the number of other cables that present snag hazards for him as he goes. Once he has completed routing the cable to the port side of Z1, he will connect it to the EPIC MDM cable, which EV1 left for him earlier on the EVA. He will also make 2 connections of the EPIC MDM cable to pigtails that were left out on another cable called the MLM Ethernet cable on a previous EVA. Once this is complete, he will return to the IDA cable bag and retrieve the third and final leg of the IDA cable, which he'll route forward along the lab and then zenith and forward on node 2, leaving it for eventual connection to the international docking adapter. Once this is complete, he will